Hey, recruiting enthusiasts, I'm Priyanka, and welcome to Tech Recruiting Unfiltered podcast, a podcast for gaining all the insider knowledge about the top recruiters in the tech industry. On this week's episode, we have Sai Kumar with us, who's the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Dentsu. He has been in this industry for over 2 decades and is skilled in technical and college recruiting. And he also has extensive experience in sourcing with a demonstrated history of working in the telecommunications industry. Apart from work, he is an avid golfer for more than 25 years now, and he enjoys travel, especially bike trips, and is a big tennis and Formula One fan. Welcome to the podcast, Sai. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you for having me over.
So how are you doing today?
Doing good.
Yeah, I'm delighted to have you here as well. And so to start off, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your role at Dentsu? And I'm curious to know how your journey began in this industry.
Okay, so I was not supposed to be part of this industry.
Okay.
I honestly was supposed to join the services. I come from a very service-oriented background family, but I guess there were other things in plan. And I started my career with GE, so I started over there. And initially, I did about 1 year of operations, post which I moved into HR, talent acquisition. And I guess I've just grown from strength to strength from there. So I've worked across organizations, and my last 20 odd years plus has been pure play outcome in recruitment, going all the way from back end of recruitment into coordination, into sourcing, into front office, into setting up recruitment offices, into managing the site from their region, then country, going across the international borders. So that's how my careers basically spanned across. Love recruitment. I think that's the closest job that you'll find in case you like chasing numbers and from a kind of a sales kind of background. So yeah, something that I'm good at and something that I like.
Awesome. And I think apart from your passion for recruitment, I think you also are passionate about golf, and you're a pro golfer for almost 25 years now. So that's pretty amazing. And I think your son is also is a golf enthusiast, and he plays at the national level, if I'm not wrong. So when did your passion for golf begin? And can you share with us any interesting experiences you've had?
I'm an amateur golfer. Tried my hand at pro, never could make it. But yeah, I've been playing golf for about 25 years plus now. I started when my father was in the Air Force. Started playing at a very young age. One of the few sports that I actually stuck on to. Played literally everything under the sun that's there. Tried my hand in tennis, swimming, badminton. But I think the only sport that stuck on to me was golf. One of the sport which has, no politics involved because it's a individual sport. And one of the few sport that you're actually playing against yourself. You're playing against the course and you're playing against yourself. You're not playing against an opponent. That's one of the things that really got stuck onto me, because it's purely how you play, how you manage yourself on the course that makes the difference. So, and that's something about golf that I really liked. Need massive patience in the game, and one of the few games that includes literally every part of your body to play good and score good in that game. That's one of the reasons why I stuck onto golf. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say that you make a lot of connections at the golf course, and I won't deny that. So you do end up making a very good PR at the golf course, but I don't do it for the PR. I just have the love for the game.
Very true, and very interesting as well. And so are there any lessons which you learned through your journey of golf which have helped you in other aspects of your life?
See, I'm a very sporty person, and I think all the principles that I've used in my day-to-day life or work has come from sports. Some of the stuff I keep telling my son, he's a nationals player. He's playing under 14 right now. A lot of the principles that I basically take into work comes from sports, not only golf, but other sporting areas as well. Stuff like don't ever give up. You never know what's the next moment going to be. One of the things I always like telling my team is don't look behind you, look ahead of you.
Yeah.
You can't change anything what's already happened. And don't let the past affect your future. You can always change the outcome as long as you're planning for future.
Yeah.
If you do not get into a game where you've got no plan, you're not going to have the outcome that you want. And that's the same principle that's for work. Let it be any kind of recruitment, let it be any kind of a meeting that you're going. If you've not planned well, your strategies are not in place, you're riding your luck. And at one point of time, your luck will run out. Your behavior, your discipline. One of the biggest things sports teaches you is not to get bogged down by failure. And recruitment is a sales kind of a job. right?
Yeah.
You're never going to meet 100% your numbers, but you meet some, you do not meet some. But when you do not meet some, what was the reason for not meeting, right? I do not consider not meeting a failure. For me, everything is an experience,
Yeah.
right? What have you learned and gained from that experience, and how do you implement what you've learned future ahead and on your future endeavors or future recruitment, numbers or hiring that come in. So that's a very important thing that sports teaches you, because if you do not learn from why you have not achieved what you planned out to achieve and do not inculcate it in your future, you're not going to achieve the kind of goals or the kind of targets that you planned out for yourself. So that's one of the biggest things that sports has taught me. The other thing sports has always taught me is you will never be able to achieve everything on your own. How do you take along everyone else? Especially when you are like playing in a team sport, right?
Yeah.
So you rally everyone across the team towards one goal, towards one target. And that's the other thing that is very unique that sports brings in to any kind of a corporate work that you do, because the TA team cannot function on its own. It has business, it
Yeah.
has compensation, it has so many other people that you've got to rally around and then get them onto the table to work. So yeah, these are the few things that absolutely sports has helped me to really excel in my career.
Yeah, I think really well said. And so, Sai, I think you also enjoy traveling and especially bike rides, and you love meeting new people as well. So, what is that one story or incident from your travels which, that holds a very special place in your heart?
See, I guess with talent acquisition, you tend to get used to or tend to like meeting new folks. That's a day in, day out, bread and butter of your work. I'll never forget this. I think in one of the organizations I'd gone for a trip. It was a pleasure trip. We landed up at that place, and I ended up offering the F&B manager a position in the organizations that I was working for. So end of the day, I guess a talent acquisition person is a talent acquisition person. And I'll never forget that. Why it's so special is, the place that we were staying in, without taking any names, there was hair in my food, and I had actually got livid about it. It was a reputed place. And the way the F&B manager came and spoke to me, and how he turned me around from being an irate customer to a person who went back into his room smiling. I said, I want that person in my organization. In fact, I wanted that person in my team, and I hired that person. One of the few things that we went out for a pleasure trip, ended up hiring that person and bringing him into talent acquisition. And today that person is working, obviously not in talent acquisition, because I kind of figured out that these folks work extremely good in customer service oriented jobs. So he spent some time in TA and before he moved into business. But whatever time he spent in talent acquisition, I think the kind of skills that he brought on board and taught a lot of us a lot of things coming from the hotel management industry was really good. So I'll never forget that aspect. I like my riding. The reason for that is at that point of time, it's only the wind, only the bike and me. I do not think about anything else. Pretty close to when I'm playing golf. The fact that it's nature, it's good breeze, good weather. I like going out for a small rides on my bike.
Yeah, really nice. And so you are the vice president of TA at Dentsu, and you manage talent acquisition for CXM, media and creative as well, the three service lines of Dentsu. So can you tell us a bit about each of these service lines and what are they really about?
Dentsu is a Japanese company. It is one of the top 5 digital marketing organizations. And Dentsu is actually going through a lot of transformational change. Right?
Yeah.
So we are a part of Dentsu entity, which is basically the Dentsu Global Services. And in that, we have 3 service lines, which is basically your CXM, which means Client Experience Management Services, your creative, and then your media. Your creative is obviously your hardcore creative side, which is used in the digital marketing, advertisement, A, B, and C. Media is more on the hardcore media side of it. It can be not only the front part of it, but the back end side of it, like your paid search, programmatic display, and other places. Your CXM is predominantly how do you help your customer drive things, right? Like insights and analytics. Okay, experience and commerce, right? Basically, employee experience and client experience, right?
Hmm.
So all of this is part of CXM. So if you actually put all the three together, that's how Dentsu is trying to drive digital marketing in the new era with its customers and clients. And that's how we are spanned out today over here.
Great. And so it's been a year for you now at Dentsu. And how has the experience been, handling three service lines and managing the recruitment for each of them?
So it's been interesting. Actually, three service lines is not that big because I've come across different organizations where the product lines can go as much as 20, 25, right? But the difference is I work predominantly in a manufacturing or an IT or a services company. This is on the digital marketing side of it, right? So that was the difference from the recruitment perspective. But end of the day, it was recruitment.
Yeah,
I mean, the flavors change, the profile change, but the recipe for recruitment will still remain the same. You still have sourcing, you still have
very true.
recruitment, you still have screening, scheduling. So the broader terms of work still remains the same, right? Absolutely, the flavors change of it, and you have to get used to the fact with the new flavors that come in. But also remember that any individual who's coming out from outside with certain years of experience will also carry that kind of inputs and that kind of maturity into this kind of a process,
Yeah.
right? So as long as the individual can adjust, pick on quickly and move on ahead, it's great. But it's not like a hardcore IT based organization or a telecom based organization. It is a little different, but I guess it's all different flavors.
Yeah, right. I want to understand a bit about, a bit more about the tech recruiting process at Dentsu. So what are usually the tech stacks you hire for?
See, the entire insights and analytics, the data platforms, for us, all of that is on the hardcore tech side of it. Okay. We are heavy on the data engineering side of it, but we also look at engineers on the market research side and everything. Right?
Hmm.
We hire in the tech side all across from the freshers through colleges all
Okay.
the way to experienced folks. We hire solutions architect, consultants all across. End of the day, tech is into everything,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if they can get into the food FMCG business, creative media, and the digital marketing business, absolutely will have tech into it.
Hmm.
So tech is something that we always look at, especially on the side of the experience and commerce. Like we hire even people with Magento, we hire a lot of Salesforce folks, right? So it's a variety of technology, but it's much more on the niche side and skill side of technology. But we hire all across, from freshers all the way to your senior architects and above.
Great, great. And so can you walk me through your approach to assessing the tech talent from source till hire? And I would love to know what variation of assessments have worked really well for you so far.
To be honest, I think first of all, a lot of technology into the assessment part of it. If I go back about, let's say, 6 to 10 years, I don't think technology was that big
Yeah.
in talent acquisition. I think today the world's extremely different from a recruitment perspective. So we have different sets of assessment for freshers, for a mid, and we are looking at not only a technical but even a behavioral assessment kind of a thing from a leadership perspective. So depending upon which profile, depending upon which skill, we have technology assessments laid out over here. We do not have it all across, but that's something that we're looking at. And we're also trying to ensure that this is something that's there from a global standpoint or approach. Previously, we are a face-to-face assessment organization, but I think in the last 1 year, we've moved and brought in technology on the assessment side of it.
Awesome. So let's say you want to evaluate a candidate's problem solving and critical thinking abilities. It's very important for the candidate to have both of it. And how would you go about it, and what methods have you have found effective in assessing these skills?
Most of these, we use the assessment organizations where they have the test, right? Plus we also have tests on the coding side of it, right? When we look at the coding side of it, we see how the individual done the coding. One, you obviously have a textbook approach, the other is a little on the creative side of it. So how does the candidate sit and approach the problem that's given to them on the coding side of it? What is the kind of solution they provided? over there. But apart from that, we have a certain bit of test which covers our analytical ability, logical reasoning. Communication skills is also something that we have a test on, right? And that's pretty much basic for up to my mid-level hiring that we do over here. It is the fact that these tests are done by these assessment organizations. There's a science and logic given by them, and these some are adaptive tests, some are non-adaptive tests. So depending
Okay.
upon the nicheness, depending upon what is the requirement, we pick the test.
Great. And so I want to talk to you a bit about soft skills and hard skills, because assessing both hard skills and soft skills of a candidate is very essential, for identifying the right person for the job. So among soft skills and hard skills, which do you prioritize and value most in candidates? And one thing I would like to know is, how do you balance the two, and what factors influence your decision making?
So it purely depends upon the role, Priyanka, right? Certain roles, communication skills can take a back seat, but the hard skills need to be really strong.
Yeah.
Okay. Depending upon where the role is placed, what is the outcome. In certain places, both of them play an equally important role. And in certain places, the comms is much more higher than the hard skills. Okay. Now, especially if it's a client facing or a customer facing role, right? Your utmost importance is on the comm skill part of it. Because even if the hard skills is not at 100% availability, if the person's about 75%, you can train and upskill the 25%. Right? Comms is much more difficult to upskill rather than the hard skill part of it.
Yeah.
So purely depending upon what is the need of the hour, okay, what is the role, is what you mix and match in place. So it's not like one for everything is one role. I mean, for different positions, it's different skill sets that you mix and match. So that's how we basically pick and play. And there are some roles in my organizations which are very customer oriented roles. So that's when we really pick the comms. The soft skills needs to be extremely high. Even though the hard skills are not there, we supplement that with someone at the back end, so that the person gets covered in that area. But in certain places where the soft skills are not high, we really look at the hard skills extremely great, because then the soft skills is not needed, because that's not a front-ending role. Purely depending upon the role, we mix and match over.
True. You have extensive experience in tech recruiting. So over the years, I think you would have faced quite a few major hurdles in the entire process. So can you share with us few of the major hurdles you have faced and any steps taken or your approach to solving them as well? Can you share with us?
I guess everyone's got the same problem, but the two biggest issues that have come in during the COVID era is basically one for sure is your offer dropout, with the way the market's gone bonkers and crazy on the tech side of it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's my perspective. End of the day, I can understand a candidate having one offer, looking at a second one, and sometimes I've done that. Yeah. But I've always kept the first company in loop, saying that, hey, listen, I've got another offer. It's a better one, and for me, the role was very important. I think over a period of time, that's market has changed drastically. A lot of candidates, for them, the role has not become that important as what has been the compensation. So that's actually one of the biggest issues that I think all organizations face today. And second, for sure, is the impersification of candidates. In the era of COVID and everything, the amount of impersification that started to happen was the biggest pain. I mean, we interviewed someone else joined. I still have cases of moonlighting coming in my organization because of the work from home. The rest of the stuff, it's a day-to-day thing, so there's nothing new. But these things have been pure play increase in the last at least 2.5 years for sure.
Right. And yeah, like you mentioned, I think offer to join ratio is something which, to increase that, I think a lot of companies struggle with. So any tips you'd like to share with the budding recruiters well on how they can, increase it?
So see, one of the things we realized for sure is that there was not enough of personal connect with the candidate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you made an offer, then the candidate has a 60, because nowadays everyone has got a literally 60 or a 90-day notice period. You call the person up maybe once in 15 days. Hi, hello, how are you? Kept the phone down. But that was about it. So we actually put in a team whose job was only to ensure that they stay in touch with the candidate. keep the candidate occupied. There's a structure where we have good amount of communication going on with the candidate. Doesn't need to be only a call. We have like a session with leadership. There are times when we call them into office for coffee. We even share a lot of newsletters with them. I'm not saying they're 100% turned around everything, but we brought down our offer drop by at least 50-55%. And for me, that's a massive thing.
Yeah.
Because even after that, if the candidate's not willing to come, then in a way, I'm happy that the candidate dropped in, because I don't think the candidate culturally is would be the right fit for us.
Yeah, I think those are some really great way to approach it as well. And you're a dynamic professional and you've always looked for new ways to improve the processes. And so I'm curious to know like some of the unique initiatives you have undertaken over the years to improve and manage tech hiring efficiently.
So, one for sure is this team that we set up, which we call the NHTP. It's called a New Hire Touchpoint Team, to ensure that they manage all the offered candidates across our entity and get them to join. It's also the experience that they provide candidates after they get shortlisted before they join. The second piece is we've got a centralized sourcing and a centralized, downstream. So our recruitment is structured in a very different manner. So we have an upstream and a downstream, and the downstream is where our entire sourcing, governance, technology, everything sits. The beauty about the structure is the fact that we're much more effective, much more leaner. We being able to be a highly efficient team because we are a centralized downstream team. So today, at times we have similar skills that get sourced across my 3 service lines. But the beauty of it is because we have a centralized downstream team, they can drive effectively the profiles all across the 3 service lines. Our compliance is at 100%. We're being able to drive better experiences with candidates, with customers, not only our hiring managers, but also our channel partners, that are agencies who support us on recruitment. When you look at the entire recruitment structure as such, we've designed it very differently. It's a bit of a centralized and decentralized model, which helps us to move people around, multi-skill them, and the fact that it also helps us to service all the 3 service line with one sourcing team. This has tremendously helped us in terms of reducing the aging for the business, and that's some of the things that it gets driven massively, and because it is the same individual at times sitting and sourcing all across the 3 lines as the same team. So they sit and talk to each other. Communication is the biggest factor over here. So that's one of the biggest changes that we've been able to bring in from a recruitment standpoint. The second thing which we got done is we got a training for the entire TA team done. How do you make a sale? So a lot of TA folks ask me, we're not into sales, we are into recruitment. I said, yes, but you've got to learn to sell, because somewhere down the lane, recruitment is not only about compensation and role. A lot of folks forget that in recruitment, it is about the culture.
Yeah.
What are the softer aspects of it? How are you explaining it to the candidate? How are you selling it? End of the day, you're selling it. Because if you're not doing a good job of selling it, the candidate's not going to purchase the opportunity. It's just as simple as that. We had some LinkedIn trainings that got done. COVID was a good time to get these kind of trainings set in and everything. So there are a few softer aspects, there's a few structural aspects, and a few aspects more from a tactical perspective that we were able to drive and get this through. But I think most and heavy on the structure aspect, because of the centralized governance, centralized sourcing aspect, we were able to turn things around massively.
Yeah, I think this is some really interesting initiatives you have taken. And yeah, I think like you mentioned, you have an extensive experience in sourcing as well. And you have led and managed pan-India sourcing for B2 Group and the Accenture as well. So when sourcing, like what are some of the key factors you always consider? And I want to know how you go about the entire execution of the process as well. Can you walk me through it?
For a person to be a sourcer, the person needs to come from a background of an inquisitive person, okay, or a person who's good at mining things. Because a sourcer is doing nothing but actually sitting and mining job sites.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, for a sourcer to be effective and to be successful, the first and foremost thing the sourcer needs to do is understand the role and the JD.
True.
Because if the sourcer cannot understand the role and JD, the hit ratio of the sourcer is going to be really low. And it's going to be more, the sourcer may be a hard worker, but it's not a smart worker.
Yeah.
End of the day, the first thing starts with how good are you at understanding the role and what the role is. Now, when you're doing that, you need to know what is the must to have, okay? What is the good to have? These are two things that you need to know. And the third aspect, obviously, then you meet candidates, you do the selling, you do the screening and everything. But the one of the aspects which is very important from a sourcing perspective is consulting. How does the sourcer consult? Now, what do I mean by that? It basically means that, okay, today, my business is asking for skill ABC at a X compensation, because for everything there's a compensation, right? And if we cannot provide an ABC on X compensation, can we do an ABD with an X compensation? If the sourcer has a good understanding of the role, good understanding of the market, then the sourcer can do a consulting. This is one of the biggest differences I see in the sourcing industry, if I had to term it as that. They're good, they have knowledge, but they lack consulting skills. A lot of them are really good. But the fact that how do you sit down on the table with the business and say, you know what, if this does not work, we should try this. This is the other combination that we should look at. That's the consulting thing that actually puts a good sourcer apart from a great sourcer.
True. Very true. And what are, few channels, I think, like if you had to like probably rate them, or what are the few channels which you have found very effective for sourcing?
I think your largest depends. If you're looking at your lower to mid, your largest channel is your Naukri. I don't think there's anyone beats Naukri. Unfortunately, Naukri has the biggest go-to channel over here. But when it comes to mid and senior, I think the best channel you have is LinkedIn. Now, you do have your Facebooks and your others that you've got, but I think those are all supplementary. If I had to bet on two biggest channels, one would be Naukri, other would be LinkedIn, and that's purely from your fresher to mid management, and from your mid management to senior is how I would break up. But these two would be my go-to channels for sure.
Right. So you've worked in a couple of industries, from telecommunication to IT services, industrial machinery manufacturing, and now even you've entered the advertising sector as well. So how different or similar are the source to hire strategies? Like, are there any unique challenges you've faced, particularly in advertising, which you've not in other industries?
See, the LinkedIn's of the world or the Naukris of the world have been very matured from a technology perspective. Okay. But the creative and media world, still a lot is not there on the LinkedIn and Naukri perspective. So a lot of them still work and function more on the PR side of it. Okay. That's a massive change to the telecom or the IT industry. So you might find a lot of people through the PR, making through your PRs, through finding someone from a specific organization, okay, and then do so. Especially in organizations like WBP or Omnicom, Publicis, they're competitors of us, right? You might not find all the CVs on these websites. So a lot of these positions, especially in the senior positions, are mainly done on a mapping perspective. Okay, that's one of the difference. While it's still there on the IT, I'm not saying it's not there, but I think the amount of the mapping is that we do over here is extremely high. Also, to the fact that in the IT industry, it's easy, because it's given in the CV. I've got this certification. I've done that project. It's easier that way to shortlist the person. On the creative and media side, they really have to get into depth as to what work they have done in the entire project. So that's one of the two major differences.
Yeah, true, very true. And so your colleagues and your team have praised you for your amazing work during your stint as National Campus Manager at Wipro. So are there any key takeaways you can share with us? And I would also like to know, like, any key areas you have observed companies overlooking, when hiring on campus.
I think, first of all, from a campus perspective, the biggest thing that certain companies do, I'm not saying all companies, but certain companies use. They've got this criteria that the person needs to be at 6.0, CGPA or bare minimum is, and they get into it. I know certain organizations who do not ask that.
Yeah.
Okay. And my biggest disconnect with campus hiring is half of the candidates are very good from a bookish knowledge perspective. Obviously, like I said, from role to role, it can differ. So, from in a specific role, if you're looking at a very hardcore tech person, then fair enough, it makes sense by all means. But when you're looking for a person, who's going to grow, doesn't just need to be on a bookish knowledge, will need to manage situations and all this and that. I have hired people across universities and colleges, and for me and the business at that point of time, we felt they were one of the best candidates that we've hired, and they were not the most high candidates in terms of scoring. So one of the things I do not agree with organizations is the fact that put a cutoff mark on a CGPA when you go into hire, right? I know certain organizations basically do that because it's like a filtration system.
Yeah.
But I just believe that maybe there is a better way to do a filtration system rather than take a cutoff percentage over there. Second, a lot of companies do not have a program with the campuses. They come, they hire, they go back.
Yeah.
There's not a relationship with the campus. I think a lot of organizations need to do that. The reason why I say that is companies have moved on from year after year after year with technologies coming in. They have evolved. Colleges have not evolved that quickly.
Yeah.
And neither have the organization invested in the colleges to evolve along with them. Now, there are a few companies that are investing. I know Wipro does that. I know Infosys does that, right? TCS also does that. But, they're not everyone.
Yeah.
If I look at about 50 companies hiring today, maybe about 5 or 8 companies are doing it. Maybe 10, 20% are doing it. I think somewhere the organizations need to start, working along with the education board, with the colleges to see, because end of the day, we're a country which is churning out the maximum number of graduates. But the sad part is, I think only, if I'm not wrong, the NASSCOM report said only about 20% or 22% of the overall pass out is actually good enough to be employed. So these are the two areas that I really feel organizations can absolutely do better.
Yeah, I think really well said, and I really love the insights as well. And I think, those are the areas which definitely companies should start focusing more on as well. And I want to talk to you about one of the very important topic, candidate ghosting. Unfortunately, I think ghosting is becoming, more and more recognized and costly phenomenon as well in recruiting. So how would you go about handling candidate ghosting? And from your experience, any tips, or examples you'd like to share with us?
One, like I said previously, we've got this NHTP team that ensures that we give them that experience. Right? But to be honest, I'd flip it around. If the candidate's going to ghost me, I would be happy if the candidate's ghosting me before the candidate joins. I don't want the candidate to join me and then ghost me. Right?
Yeah.
One of the things, obviously, I would like to do is I would want the team to sell the role properly, sell the culture of the organization. Right? Obviously, compensation is important, absolutely, but it cannot be the most, important thing over everything else. Right? It has to be the role from a growth perspective and the culture, along with the compensation that works across. Now, even after that, if a candidate is going to ghost me, from my perspective, it's good riddance. I do not want to have that candidate sitting in my organization, because from my own recruitment perspective, you are going to have a certain percentage of such candidate.
Yeah.
Can't help it. That's how life is. Deal with it and move on. But end of the day, how much can you do to ensure the candidates do not go that way?
True.
From experience perspective, from making the candidate understand what they're going to miss out in case they do not join, right? It's like I said, it's not only about compensation. So from that perspective, you try your level best to ensure that you do everything the right way so that the candidate doesn't ghost you. But if the candidates do ghost you, I'm okay. I don't want them to come and join, because if after you doing everything possible in your power to, show them the right path, show them the right career, the role, and they still want to ghost you, then I don't think there's anything else that anyone else can do.
True. Very true. I want to ask you a bit about the ways to ensure that it doesn't happen. So what are few ways, like the must do things which, recruiters can do so that they can at least reduce that ratio?
So first, obviously, tell them what the role is all about, ensure that they understand where they're coming. Also, see what kind of a culture that they're coming from, right?
Hmm.
Does it match our own culture? One of the things that we do is we also desell the role to the candidates.
Hmm.
Now, why do we desell the role? Because everyone's trying to put the best foot forward, right? So at times you should desell the role if you're not too sure about the candidate. And after deselling the role, if the candidate's got cold feet, then we know for sure.
Yeah.
Right? But sometimes the deselling really works. And then the candidate starts thinking again, saying that, why is this person deselling the role to me?
Hmm.
Right? So one is that. Two, like I said very clearly, it is the experience that you give
Yeah.
to the candidate. Like one of the times we did a hiring, and it is for a employee experience and a candidate experience profile that we were hiring. We got everyone to office. We gave them like a breakfast. We got them. We got our employees from the campus team, from the mid management level, to sit down, have breakfast with them, interacted with them.
Hmm.
We had a couple of games from the technology side over there while the entire interview process happened. We actually sent cabs to the house to pick them up.
Nice.
Like I said, these are all the kind of things that you do to drive your culture, to drive the experience, to see how much of, not how much, but to see how the candidates do not ghost you. So, from my perspective, there are certain things from a experience that you really have to drive. Also, how do you do your job in a right way? I keep getting my TA team training every 6 months
Hmm.
to see how they do. Sometimes we do mock calls to see how they would handle such candidates. And in case someone needs to get coached, we coach them all across. So keep the team trained up and how do you say efficient enough to
Yeah.
ensure these things don't happen. We also, to a certain extent, would like to use technology, but I have a different view over here. Like I said, I mean, if experience and culture cannot get the candidate, or if the candidate is still looking to ghost you, I'm okay to move the other way.
Yeah, rightly said. And yeah, I think before we wrap up our conversation, I wanted to ask you, Sai, so your experience in the industry goes back to over 2 decades. So can you tell us a bit about how the industry has, changed over time? So back then when you started out to fast track to today, and any tips or lessons you would, like to share with the budding recruiters out there?
So, see, when I started about 20 plus years back, right? I mean, recruitment didn't have technology at all. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything was in pen and paper, everything was in face, right? I think over 20 years today, you can sit at home, you can view jobs, you can apply at home, you can take an interview at home, you can
Yeah.
join at home. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I remembered when I went to get my offer letter, I sat for 4 hours just for my offer letter.
Wow.
Okay. Today, if I make a candidate to sit in an interview process for 4 hours, he'll get up and walk away. Or she'll get up and walk. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, things have moved. Right.
Hmm.
From a recruitment standpoint, I think recruiters need to be more smarter. I think each and everyone is hard, but I think some people are more smarter to work with.
Hmm.
They also need to understand what the market is all about.
Hmm.
Sometimes you are so engrossed in your day to day affair, you do not take a step back and see what other companies are doing.
True. Very true.
Okay. That is one of the biggest things that I've been able to learn from. And that's also because I've moved industries, I've learned a lot of things. So you not only what you're currently doing, but also one of the things that a recruiter should do is, have a group of TA friends or, LinkedIn group that they sit and exchange notes with. I think that's extremely important from your knowledge perspective.
Yeah.
That'll really help you to learn. One of the other things that I would really learned over the years is how to consult. Okay, and that's the biggest thing a sourcer should learn. In the olden days. So let me give you an example. So I was hiring for this without getting into names. This was a car company. Okay, and it was kind of for a billing process, and the client came back saying that these folks are not good. And we said, but the comm skills are really good. So we actually went, sat down, understood. And then I understood. So the calls that were coming in, the person would say, my dashboard's not working, or my left fender is cracked, my fuselage is not. Now they were good in English, but they did not know what a dashboard is. They
Yeah.
did not know what a fender is. Now we needed to train them. So everyone's sitting and looking at trainers and trainers and trainers and trainers. And suddenly someone had a bright idea. We actually went into the car showroom, hired 3 of the salespeople, got them into become the trainers for these folks. And the process was successful after that.
Nice. Yeah.
This is what I learned over the period of time. Not, like one of my bosses said, different strokes for different folks. Right? So you have to start thinking more out of the box. Nothing is impossible. Everything is possible given the right time, the right mix, and everything.
True. I think you've shared some really great learnings. And yeah, that brings us to the end of our conversation. I enjoyed speaking with you, Sai, and I love the insights and the tips you've shared with us today. So thanks again for joining Tech Recruiting Unfiltered podcast.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. Thank you for having me over. It was a great time speaking to you.